I refused to name our child after my abusive father-in-law. Now everyone is calling me toxic and heartless. Hi folks, welcome to Story Nest. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps a lot and lets us keep sharing great stories with you. It all started 7 years ago when I first met my wife. Early in our relationship, she brought up something that seemed like a simple, heartfelt idea. She casually mentioned that if they ever had a son, she wanted to name him after her father. At the time, I didn't think much of it. It struck me as a sweet gesture, a reflection of how much she respected and admired the man who had raised her. I didn't know him well yet, but I figured that anyone who earned such admiration must be someone truly worthy of it. Fast forward to today. We're expecting our first child, our first son, to be exact. The excitement was palpable. But then, it came time to decide on a name, and once again, she brought up her father's name. I wasn't caught off guard, as I remembered her mentioning it all those years ago. But this time, something inside me tightened. I had spent the last several years really getting to know her father, and in that time, I had learned a great deal, most of it unsettling. Her father wasn't the kind of man I'd imagined back when I first heard her mention him. The man she wanted to honor had a long history of poor behavior. He was verbally abusive to his wife, her mother, and his addiction to alcohol had wrecked his relationships and choices for years. He had only quit drinking in the last couple of years, but that wasn't out of any real personal growth. No, his decision to get sober was forced upon him due to severe health complications. His views on life? They were regressive, to say the least. I'd heard him belittle his own grandsons for showing any sort of emotion or for expressing anything that wasn't strictly masculine. He often told his daughter, my wife, how she should raise the boys in the family, all while disregarding any boundaries. What was even more troubling was that she had distanced herself from him for a long time, a choice she made in an attempt to protect her own mental health. For years, she had limited her interactions with him, and only recently, following his health scare and her pregnancy, had she begun reaching out more. It was clear that this was a decision motivated more by duty than genuine affection. I couldn't let it go. I had to speak up. I don't think it's a good idea to name our son after him, I told her firmly. I know you want to honor him, but I can't support it. Her face dropped in shock, and the air between us grew tense. How could you say that? She asked, her voice trembling. You knew from the beginning that I wanted this. How can you just change your mind now? I wasn't prepared for how deeply hurt she seemed. But the truth was, I had barely even remembered that initial conversation we'd had all those years ago. And even when I did recall it, I realized that I never actually agreed to it. Back then, I had simply said I thought it was a nice idea, nothing more. I never envisioned this moment, never thought it would actually come to pass, and certainly never thought I'd be facing a decision like this. Why would you want to name him after a man whose values are so different from ours? I asked her. He's not someone you've even wanted around, someone you've actively kept at a distance for your own peace of mind. And now, just because of his health, you want to tie our son to him forever. She looked at me, her face a mixture of frustration and disbelief, like she couldn't comprehend where I was coming from. Her eyes welled up with tears as she took a step back, almost as if the words I'd spoken were a betrayal. You don't understand, she said, her voice shaking. He's my father. He's family, and I've never wanted to completely shut him out. I've been trying to find a way to make peace with him. I know he's made mistakes, but he's still my dad. He's sick now. This could be my last chance to honor him before it's too late. I watched her as she fought to keep her composure. It was clear that this wasn't just about the name. It was about her complicated relationship with him, about the deep-rooted love she had for the man who, despite everything, was still her father. I could feel the weight of her internal conflict, but I still couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't the right choice for us or for our son. But that's the thing, I replied softly, trying to keep my voice calm. You've kept him at arm's length for years, and now you want to tie our son's identity to him? That feels like we're setting him up for something he doesn't even know about. I just don't understand how you can go back on everything you've said about him. You've always protected your mental health by keeping him away, so why would you want to bring him closer now in this way? Her face flushed, a mix of anger and hurt flashing in her eyes. This is about the name, not everything else, she snapped. I'm not asking you to forget what he's done. I'm asking you to respect my decision to give our son a name that's meaningful to me. Why can't he just support me in this one thing? I could feel the frustration building in me, and it was hard to hold back the emotion. I knew this was important to her, but there was a limit to what I could compromise on. I'm not asking you to forget your father, but this is about our child. It's about the values we want to pass down. I don't want to name him after someone who has hurt you and others for so long. I want to name him after something that represents who we are and what we want him to stand for. She shook her head, the tears now freely falling. You knew this was something I wanted, she whispered. You knew how much it meant to me. Why can't he just give me this? There it was again, the raw pain in her voice. I could see the deep divide between us growing wider with every passing second. I wanted to understand her feelings. I really did. But I also needed her to understand mine. This wasn't just about a name. It was about a legacy. I sighed, my heart heavy. I'm sorry, but I can't go along with this. I can't give him a name that represents someone whose values don't align with ours. It's just not right. The room was silent for a long time, the weight of my words hanging in the air like a thick fog. I could see how much this hurt her, but at the same time, I couldn't help but feel a growing resentment inside me. Why was she so insistent on doing something that felt wrong for our family? The silence between us was deafening, and I could feel my chest tightening as I waited for her response. I could see the tears on her face, and it hit me harder than I expected. This wasn't just about the name. It was about the emotions tied to it. Her father wasn't just some distant relative she had no connection to. He was someone who had played a significant role in shaping her life, even if it hadn't always been for the better. She wiped her face with the back of her hand and took a few shaky breaths, clearly trying to steady herself. I can't believe this, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I thought you'd be on my side. You promised we'd make decisions together. But now, it feels like you're shutting me out. I felt a pang of guilt twist inside me. I hated seeing her hurt, but I knew I couldn't back down on this. It's not about being on your side or shutting you out, I said, trying to explain myself. I just don't think this is the right thing for us, for our son. We can't name him after someone who's caused so much pain. I don't want our child to carry that legacy. She looked at me, frustration clouding her features. You're making it sound like I'm asking you to forgive him or to forget everything. I'm not. I just want to give our son a piece of my family, something that ties him to where I came from. That's all. I could see the sincerity in her eyes, and part of me understood where she was coming from. She wasn't trying to erase the past. She was trying to reconcile it in a way that made sense for her. But the deeper we went into this conversation, the more it felt like we were heading down a path that neither of us could walk down together. I get it, I do, I said softly. But I can't help but feel like we're setting our son up for something that could hurt him. You said yourself that you've had to keep your distance from him for your own mental health. Why would we want to attach our child's future to a man who's caused you so much pain? She took a deep breath, her voice shaking again. I know he's hurt me, and I know he's done things I can't forgive. But he's still my dad, and I don't want to completely cut him out of my life. Maybe this is my way of finding some middle ground. It's not just about him. It's about me too. It's about healing. There was a long pause as I processed her words. I could see the internal battle she was facing. She wanted to honor her father, but at the same time, she was acknowledging the hurt he had caused. It wasn't easy to reconcile those two feelings. I understood that, but I also knew that my responsibility as her partner was to look out for our family as a whole, to protect us from repeating the same mistakes that had already caused so much damage in her past. I don't want to hurt you, I said quietly, my voice thick with emotion. But I don't think this is the way to heal. We can't ignore the truth about who he is. It's not about cutting him out completely, but we don't have to carry that burden forward. We can find a name that's meaningful to both of us without tying our son to a man who hasn't earned that honor." She looked at me, her expression softening, but the tension in her shoulders remained. "I just don't know if I can get past this," she admitted. "It feels like you're taking away something I've held onto for so long. I thought you understood how important it was to me." I could see the hurt in her eyes, and it broke my heart. I never wanted to cause her this kind of pain, but I also knew that this decision wasn't something I could compromise on. It wasn't just about me. It was about us, about the future we were building for our son. I wanted him to grow up with strong values, free from the baggage of a past that wasn't his to carry. As the conversation stretched on, I felt the weight of our disagreement settling in. The room felt smaller, the air heavier with each passing second. We had reached an impasse, and neither of us was willing to budge. I could see the hurt on her face, but I also knew that I couldn't back down. This wasn't just about a name. It was about setting a foundation for our son, one that reflected the values we wanted him to grow up with. I had to stay firm, even if it meant causing tension between us. "I'm sorry," I said again, my voice soft but resolute. "I know this is important to you, but I just can't agree to it. I can't give our son a name that feels like a reminder of everything that's wrong with your father. I don't want that for him." She nodded slowly, her eyes downcast, as if weighing my words carefully. After a long pause, she spoke again, her voice quieter this time, but no less heavy with emotion. "I get it. You don't have to agree with me. But it still hurts. I didn't think this would be such a big deal." "I never wanted it to be," I replied, my heart heavy. "I never wanted to hurt you. But I also don't want to see us repeating mistakes from the past. Our son deserves better than that." She didn't say anything for a long moment, just stood there, taking it all in. I could see the conflict swirling in her eyes, the love for her father, the pain from his actions, and the desire to honor him, despite everything. It was a battle between her past and the future she wanted to build for our family. I didn't envy the position she was in. "I don't know what to do," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I thought we could share this decision, but now it feels like we're on opposite sides." I reached out, gently taking her hand, trying to offer comfort. "We'll figure this out, I promise. It doesn't have to be like this. I just want to make sure whatever we choose, it's something we both feel good about. Something that's right for our son." She squeezed my hand in return, but there was still a distance between us, something unspoken hanging in the air. I knew we had a lot to work through, but I also knew this wouldn't be an easy fix. Our son's name was just one piece of a much larger puzzle, the balance between honoring the past and creating something new for the future. It was going to take time for both of us to come to terms with this, and I hoped we could find a way to move forward together. As I stood there with her, both of us exhausted and emotionally drained, I realized this moment wasn't just about a disagreement. It was about learning how to navigate the complexities of our relationship and the challenges that came with blending our histories into something that would shape the future we were trying to build. I didn't have all the answers, but I knew one thing for sure: I wasn't going to let this tear us apart. We had to find a way to move forward together.